Hi everybody, and welcome back to Every Stitch Counts. Hello, and welcome back for another episode this week. If you're new here and you're just tuning in, my name is Charlotte. I am the creator behind Every Stitch Counts, and primarily on this channel I talk about all things related to knitting and whatever crafty, artistic endeavor I find myself getting up to. I truly believe that every little bit counts in life, and that true growth is something that takes a lot of time. A stitch, something that is so small, just really represents that. So I'm happy to have you along for the ride and to explore all my projects and creations with me. On this channel, I primarily talk about my process, things I've made, what I like, don't like, what I would do again, wouldn't do again, but I also like to explore lots of other things and artistic endeavors, so we could really talk about all of those things. If you haven't done so already, please like this video, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to this channel. It really helps me out, it helps the YouTube algorithm out, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. It is such gorgeous weather today here in Seattle. It's like 55 degrees and sunny, there's no wind, it's crispy blue skies outside. So I'm just in such a wonderful mood, and I can't wait to talk to you today about today's episode. A lot of the times, knitting content, knitting podcasts, I see all the time people talking about projects that they've made that they really ended up liking. I don't often hear people talk about the projects that maybe didn't quite pan out the way that they wanted to, and we all have them. We all have those sweaters that just sit in our closet that we thought we would wear all the time, and we just don't. We can tend to want to push those to the side and never look at them, but I actually think that it's really helpful and been really powerful for me to really analyze why I don't wear those, because then I can avoid making those same mistakes again. Today we're going to talk about 3 sweaters that I thought for sure I would wear all the time that I just don't. I have worn these a handful of times, but they're not things that I reach for in my day-to-day life, and they're not things that I particularly enjoy wearing, which to me is the bare minimum of a handmade clothing item. You have to enjoy wearing it. If it's not comfortable on your body, I'm just not gonna wear it. And I struggle to see where other people would also wear things that they just don't feel comfortable in. So we're gonna talk about those 3 sweaters, why I don't wear them, and maybe what I would do differently, and what I could even do in the future to integrate those items more into my wardrobe. If you're interested in that, grab a cozy drink, your project, and come hang out with me for a bit. Just a couple disclaimers before we get started. There is going to be a lot of inherent bias in this video. These are things that are very personal to me. Hopefully you relate to some of them. Just keep that in mind. I'm not saying that this is a golden rule. I'm not saying that this should be the standard. These are merely lessons that I've learned throughout the process that I think other people will benefit from. Much of the time, the reason we don't like a sweater or finished garment has nothing to do with the standalone pattern or yarn. So this is not a bash on the yarn or the design of any of the sweaters that I'm going to talk about. However, knitting is a complex craft. You're bringing in texture and thickness and weight and fiber quality, fiber material, design, all together, and you're trying to create something that you're gonna want to put on your body and show other human beings every day. So there's a lot of room within that for you to maybe make a choice that ends up creating a garment that you don't want to wear that much. However, I still love and would recommend every single one of these patterns and every single one of these yarns. I just maybe wouldn't have paired them together in the way that I did. So just want to put that out there, that these are all inherent biases that I have about the things that I've made and ultimately why I think I haven't been wearing them. And that there's been rarely a time where I've ever just not liked a design. If I hadn't liked the design, I wouldn't have made the pattern to begin with. The first sweater kind of breaks my heart a little bit, to be honest, because it is my Cara sweater. This is a gorgeous raglan cable knit sweater that I knit in the 3rd size by Knit. I saw a picture of this when it was in R&D and when it was being written by her, and I commented, when is that pattern being released? I need to make that. And so I waited about 6 months before this pattern was released in order to make it. I was so excited, I couldn't wait, and I was for sure I was going to wear it all the time. I think I've worn this outside of the house twice, and I've had it for almost 2 years now, which is just really disappointing because this is a very beautiful pattern and the yarn is very expensive. So the fact that I don't wear this feels like a huge waste. So what's going on here? There are 2 main reasons why I think I don't gravitate towards this. There's going to be a lot of nuance within these 2 things, but to cap them off for everybody, the first one would be my gauge, the overall gauge of this sweater, and then size and fit. So those things coupled together is really, I think, what pulls me away from wanting to wear this garment and integrate it into my wardrobe. So let's talk about gauge first. The pattern is originally knit in a worsted weight yarn, and I knit this up on a US 6. It calls for worsted weight yarn. I used worsted weight yarn. I think that I just wish I had sized up. You'll be able to see in the try-on clip better, but this does not have a lot of drape to it. It's pretty stiff, and the gauge is also very tight. So what does this really mean in actuality? What this means to me is that it just feels very thick and bulky on my body when I wear it. It doesn't feel like it's flowing or draping or like loose on my body. I feel like I'm wearing just this really thick, hot, kind of stiff, sweaty sweater. And that's not what we want. It is Icelandic wool and merino, so it's obviously very breathable still, but it just feels so bulky to wear. And I struggle with when I'm even gonna wear it. I think if maybe I lived in a very, very cold climate, I would feel differently. It gets cold in Washington, but rarely is it so cold that I need to wear this and a coat, and it just feels like a bit too much. I also think that if it had been a bigger gauge, the size of the overall sweater would have been different, which leads right into my second reason for why I think I don't wear this. I was playing yarn chicken when I was first making this, and so I ended up knitting not a size too small, but knowing myself and knowing the kinds of ways that I like things to fit, I would have wanted this to fit much more like my Harju sweater that you've seen before. That cabled sweater is very long and baggy, and it looks like just oversized, and it has really big straight sleeves, and it just looks slouchy and comfortable. And this just feels a bit too small. Like, I wish the sleeves were longer on it. I wish it wasn't so fitted on me. Maybe it also has a little bit to do with the material, but the fact that it kind of sits so close to my skin and my body without a lot of positive ease. The Icelandic wool just really feels itchy. I think if it was a little bit bigger, it wouldn't feel so irritating on my body. And so I wish I had knit this in a US 7 or maybe even an 8. I don't think I did a gauge for either of those needle sizes because when I did a gauge originally, the US 6, I met gauge and it was totally fine. So I'm not saying I knit this in the wrong gauge. It technically is very similar to what the pattern ended up looking like and what the pattern was designed to look like. However, I think that the cables would have ended up looking fine and looking just as good if the gauge had been a little bit bigger. That also would have resulted in the whole thing being less stiff and being a bit airier, a bit more breathable, and not feeling like it was just so heavy and clunky and chunky like on my body. So unfortunately, I think that's why I don't wear this. The big question for me with this is, well, what can I do about it, if anything? Now, I said before, this yarn was very expensive, and I think that there are really 4 possible, you can't see her, but that's her cameo. I think there are 3 possible solutions that I could do at this point to maybe make this a bit more wearable and something that I would tend to gravitate towards. Number one, and one that I thought about the most, is just to cut the sleeves and add some length. I really don't like how this sits slightly below my wrist, especially if I reach up or if I am wearing it all day. It will tend to shrink up, as these sweaters tend to do, and it can look even shorter, and I really don't like that. So I've contemplated just putting waste yarn in between a row here, probably right where the ribbing hits, and then just adding some more length that way, and then Kirschner stitching it back together again, similar to what I did with my Fieltor Light in episode 7 of the Every Stitch Counts podcast, if you're curious. I could just do that to the sleeves, right? And that would add some length to the sleeves, and then I think I would be more inclined to wear it. The next thing I could do, which is by far the equivalent of jumping off of a cliff, is I could just remake this. I know I've already washed it. It's sat for a long time. It would probably be kind of a pain to pull out since there is merino in this and it's pretty fuzzy, as you can see. When I say this yarn was expensive, I mean it. I think I bought 7 or 8 skeins and they were $25 a pop plus sales tax. So that's expensive for it just to be sitting and be a disappointment on my shelf. So if I was to make it again, and assuming like I rip it all out, I reprocess the yarn so it's not crinkly and I just start over, I would probably do a gauge for this same sweater just in a size US 7 or an 8, so sizing up a little bit, which is what I think the original problem was. And then I would do less shaping on the arm as well, having a very straight sleeve so that overall the sweater fits very similarly to my Harju sweater, which is very straight. It doesn't hug my body really. It just is like big slouchy drapes over me very nicely, I think. And with that as well, I think if I was to add a bigger gauge, I think the neckline would also open up a bit, look nicer. I know this looks very nice, so I feel like it maybe sounds a bit pretentious that I'm nitpicking it like this, but the truth is I don't wear it, so it doesn't really matter how nice it looks to me, like when it's just on a hanger, or to anyone else looking at a picture of it. I don't wear it, and so your girl's got to figure out why so that she can fix it. I think that would be obviously the most extreme option, but I really enjoyed knitting this yarn and I really enjoyed working with it, so getting to have that experience again I don't think would be that bad, and it might actually be kind of fun and a fun experiment to see if I can salvage it and create something that I really want to wear. The last thing I think I could do is not really anything to this sweater right now, but just take a mental note. The fact that I think I like things to be not quite so dense. When I first started knitting, I really enjoyed fabrics that were super tight because I didn't want it to look homemade. In my mind, that was just meant homemade. Like if the gauge wasn't super tight and neat and thick almost, in my mind I was like, I don't want it to drape funny. I don't want it to not hang properly. I want structure. And I think I just went a bit too extreme with this, and I would like it better if it was a gauge up. And I wouldn't have to play yarn chicken as much because I would have enough yarn because my gauge is like stretching the fabric more. So that's my Cara sweater. Let me know in the comments what you think I should do. I kind of think it would be fun to film the whole process of like ripping this out, reprocessing the yarn and remaking something, then talking about what I think about the finished garment that I've remade for the second time. That's my first sweater and my first lessons learned. All right. My next one, man, these are all kind of making me a little sad because I put so much time and money into the yarn that I chose for these, and that's also a pseudo lesson learned. Like, don't feel like you have to buy the most expensive yarn every single time you make a sweater. It can really end up biting you in the butt if, I don't know, aren't super confident that you're gonna wear that thing, or you're not super confident about that color that you chose. So just word of caution. But the next sweater I'm going to talk about is a jacket, and it is that's right, it's my November jacket by Petite Knit. This is a massive, so massive, all over brioche stitch, open, no button jacket that has 2 big pockets. Hello? That has 2 big pockets on the front And it doesn't feature bubble sleeves, it's actually just straight, but it does feature this double knitting band that you apply to the end here, which kind of makes a very subtle bubble sleeve. There's two main reasons why I think I don't wear this. Number one, by far, is the color. Now, hello? It's my mom texting me. Love her. Hi, Mom. The color. Now, little story time. When I first bought this, it was my first Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. I was very excited to be there. I was so thrilled to see everything, and I was so overwhelmed with the options of what you could purchase that I ended up purchasing really beautiful yarn. Like, the yarn was really beautiful. It was a beige alpaca, 100% alpaca yarn from Daffy Farms. Gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous yarn. I didn't really think about the color too much. I really loved the color in the skein. What I wish I had thought about was the fact that I don't wear that color on my body ever. Like, I never wear this color, nor have I ever worn this color. Maybe I should. I'm sure there's a way I could incorporate this. You know, I've never worn it. And so now that I have finished said garment, it sits in my closet and it's just not something that I reach for. It doesn't integrate well with all my other clothing because I don't typically wear this color. And so the things that I have tend to not be colors that I think go with this or make it shine. And like, it would need to be styled appropriately because I just don't think it's my color. I think it kind of washes me out. It doesn't bring out my features the way that like this color does or some of the more jewel toned colors do. It just feels like it's not doing it for me. The second reason why I don't wear this is because of the material, unfortunately. I did hold this strand of alpaca double with something. I held it with 100% Shetland yarn in fingering weight, and together it created an Aran weight yarn. And you can't even tell that it's held with something, like the color match is so good. And the Shetland yarn would not have pilled. And I think that the Shetland yarn in the alpaca has caused less pilling, but even that's truly incredible because I have never made something that sheds as much as this does. I don't even have a depiller that is like strong enough to defuzz this thing. Like, it doesn't suck it all up. I think I wore this a grand total of like 2 or 3 times, and it took me over an hour to get not even 50% of the pills off. So maybe it's an issue with my depiller, but also it sheds on everything. It pills like crazy. It gets on everything that I wear, and I just don't like dealing with that. I don't like feeling like the garment I'm wearing looks shaggy or just not like crisp and polished. And this requires so much maintenance to wear and maintain that it just causes me to not want to deal with it, which is really unfortunate because the pattern's beautiful. I think the yarn is beautiful. And again, it's a perfect example of the pattern's great. I love the pattern. I love the design. The yarn is great. But all of that combined together just maybe wasn't the right choice. The alpaca is what really sheds a ton in this. Had I had more experience with fiber and had I had more experience with like being able to look at different yarns and whether or not they're gonna be likely to shed a lot, I probably would have picked something different to make a jacket out of. Like, I really should have made this out of like something like a Let Lopi yarn or something that isn't prone to shedding fiber or pilling. And I think the actual issue with this alpaca yarn was that the fibers were super short, and when your fibers are super short in a spin, they're going to be very likely to like come out of the thread versus really like holding onto the thread and holding on to other fibers within the garment. Like, there's not enough length for them to adhere to each other in this. So it just kind of comes out. I think there are 3 possible solutions I could come up with to make that more wearable in my wardrobe. Number 1 would be finding and investing in a really high quality depiller, something that's not going to take a millennia for me to use to like depill the sweater. If it was an easy process that I could do in like 10 to 15 minutes, I think eventually it would stop shedding as much because it would felt and would condense all of those fibers eventually. So I think that would be the most obvious thing to do. The second thing I think I could do is just spend some time educating myself on what colors I should wear to really bring that beige to life. The beige can't be the main show of the outfit, and really it's just not something I have been gravitating towards because, again, it doesn't integrate well with my other items. So I think thinking about the colors that would really make it look good, both like the color itself, but then in combination with like my skin tone and coloring, and then maybe just investing in like a pair of pants, right? That I know I can wear and feel confident pairing the sweater or the jacket with. I think that color would look really good with chocolate brown, like deep chocolate brown, maybe with like dark jewel tone accents. It would look really good with gold because it's very warm toned, which again, I don't wear a lot of chocolate brown. Like I'm a silver girly 95% of the time, and those just aren't colors I have in my wardrobe. But I could invest over time in a couple of those things because I think the sweater design itself is super chic and one that I want to wear. Like it's so comfortable and so warm that I would hate to just not wear it. And so I think those two options are actually really doable and things that I can do to intentionally like wear it more and integrate it more into my wardrobe. And again, this is more of a lessons learned, things I could do in the future to avoid this problem again. Instead of picking yarns and colors specifically that I really just like looking at, if I'm going to invest in a really huge project that's going to require a lot of time, a lot of money, and hopefully be something that I want to wear all the time because of how much work it was, maybe pause before I buy something for that project again and really analyze my current closet. Like, what are the colors I wear? Not the colors I like, the colors I wear. Because, at least for me, they can often and are often two different things. I really like bright orange. I like the color bright orange. I think it's a great accent color, weirdly, for a lot of things. I don't wear bright orange. I don't own anything bright orange. So for me to spend $200+ on yarn in a jacket, like a statement piece of clothing in bright orange, might be kind of setting myself up for failure. Maybe it would be a hit, but the odds of that are pretty low. And again, it's all about like what you're willing to do and like what you're willing to spend on something that you may or may not wear. You may be totally fine to spend that kind of money on a sweater like that or on a pattern or a project. And if you don't end up wearing it that much, it's no skin off your nose. Totally fine. I wish I had been a bit more thoughtful and known how to pick colors and yarns that I really enjoy wearing. Some of that's going to just come with experience. I didn't know what I know now then. So it's hard to even do that at the time when you don't know. But that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm telling you all of this, because maybe you can now start asking yourself some of these questions before you impulsively or out of pressure, because with your friends, you're at an event, buy yarn that you're not actually going to end up wearing. So think about your closet, think about the colors you actually wear, not the colors you like, the colors you wear, and then think about your favorite sweaters that you've made or other people have made you, what those yarns are made out of, and why did you like those, and maybe guide your choice with those things. The last sweater is a bit of a, not a controversy because no one knows about it. It's a controversy for me. And it is my Riddari sweater. This was the very first colorwork project that I ever made. I love it. I really do love it. I think the colors are really pretty. I had never had to pair colors together. And so I think for my very first kind of color pairing project, I did a really good job. I still really love looking at this sweater, and I like the yarn I chose. I like a lot of things about this. However, I don't gravitate to wear it. And there's one simple reason for that, and it's the fit. I know when I show the clips of this, I will probably get reactions or comments of saying, well, it looks great on you. It fits amazing on you. I've heard that a lot about this. And while objectively a lot of people might think that, and while it looks good, I don't disregard that it looks good, it doesn't feel good on me for some reason. And I think the biggest reason for why it doesn't feel good is because I made the size small in a US 6 needle, and it just hugs my shoulders in a way that I don't like. I wish that this was knit one needle size bigger and in one size bigger. Again, similar to the Cara sweater, at the time of making this, I really wanted like a denser fabric. I didn't want you to be able to see anything through it, and I didn't really understand the concept of how much some of these yarns can bloom and fill out a stitch. So I wish I had knit this on a US 7 instead of a 6, because I think it would have been an airier, more breathable, more comfortable fabric in the end. This feels very stiff and it's very warm and just a bit too much to wear sometimes. And so I wish it was a bit airier. Same with the size. I think going up a needle size would have helped with this, but I also just wish that this fit similar to my Harju sweater. Again, that to me is like the gold standard of how I want outerwear sweaters to fit. That sweater is big, it's slouchy, I feel like it suits my body well because I am tall, and I just really like the way that sweater looks on me, and I wish that this fits similarly to that. It feels too fitted to me, and I wish it was a bit slouchier, a bit more cool girl, you know? But the big thing is, yeah, the density of the fabric and the fact that I feel like it like hugs or grips my shoulders. I really don't like that feeling, and I would change that about it. I think the length of it is okay. I really like my sleeve length for this sweater, but again, I wish that the bottom of it was just a little bit longer. I really do. And those are the biggest things I would change about it and my process for making it. Things I think I could do to like fix that now would actually be pretty easy and doable. I have quite a bit of yarn left, so I could very easily adjust the length issue by, again, simply making a incision, if you will, doing some sweater surgery and inserting a couple waist yarn threads and then cutting and then adding some length. I could do that. I don't think I'm gonna do any of those changes for this sweater. I think it's just one of those things that was a really good learning experience, and I wear this one more than I wear the other two. So even though there's things I don't love about the fit of this one or like how it feels on me, I still wear this all the time as like my outdoor sweater. So when I was horseback riding a lot the last year or so, I was wearing this like every week. And I take it out to walk the dog. It has ended up just being, okay, you need to chill. I tend to wear this a lot, you know, going out to walk the dog, and it's ended up just being my outdoor sweater when I need to go out for a walk. And, you know, it can be nice to have sweaters that you're not so invested in keeping super nice for whatever reason, and I think this has kind of turned into that for me. But the lesson from this one is, again, similar to the other ones of it's just a mental note. It's just a thing that I think about now when I look at specifically yoke constructed patterns and how I like them to fit. And I think that my Talvinnen sweater is a perfect example of how I took lessons from this sweater and then incorporated that into how I put that sweater together. So that sweater, it fits me like perfectly. I love not only how it fits and looks to other people, but I also love how that sweater feels on my body. I don't feel like it's tight across my shoulders. I feel like the length is appropriate and good for the sweater that it is. I love the sleeves. I love that there's lots of positive ease in the yoke. So again, it feels like I can layer it, but it's not too sweaty. It's not like clinging to my skin. And I really like that. So this is a prime example of how you can still like a sweater that maybe you don't wear that much, and you can just appreciate it for the lessons that it has given you. For me, a huge takeaway from this is that color really matters. I think my November jacket illustrates this the best. I love the design of that sweater, and yet the color of the sweater is one of the biggest reasons why I don't reach for it. And the difference between colors that I like and colors that I wear is actually really important. I love hot pink. There's lots of colors that I really like looking at, and maybe I like them in different applications, but I don't wear those colors. For example, I may like to have a pink accent chair, but I don't necessarily want to wear pink on my body. I do actually like pink, so that's a bad example, but you get what I'm saying. So color is really important. So as you're picking yarn for your projects and you're unsure, really try to think about, am I checking as many boxes as I can that would make me want to wear this? So look at your closet and look at your favorite pieces of clothing. What color are they? If you pick something in that family of color, odds are going to be a little bit higher that you like wearing your final garment. Number 2, how it feels on my body is super important. This goes along with fit, but I think this also can bleed into the fiber that you choose and the yarn spin even, or how it's spun, how it feels collectively on your body. Sometimes how it feels on your body has nothing to do with the design. It has everything to do with the material. And I think my Cara sweater and my Riddari sweater are really good examples of that. I really like the color of both of those sweaters. I think they're colors that I would wear. But in both of those sweaters, I really wish I had used a gauge that was a little bit looser so that that yarn could really bloom and not feel so dense, stiff, and sweaty and like heavy on my body. I'm not sure I'm describing it well, but I just feel, it feels like work to wear those sweaters, especially the Cara sweater. It feels like a commitment that I don't want it to be that big of a deal to wear it. So if I had used maybe a looser gauge or sized up a sweater size, I would be more inclined to wear those. They wouldn't feel as tight or as clingy on my body. And especially in regard to the Cara sweater, if it wasn't so tight on my body, it wouldn't be so itchy, because the Icelandic wool is like very hairy and is known to be very itchy. So I think if I had ended up making a larger gauge for both of those sweaters, I would be more inclined to wear them. Especially with my Cara sweater, it wouldn't have felt so like stiff and heavy on my body. That concludes this week's episode. I hope that this was helpful for you. It's really helpful for me to take a moment and look at all of the sweaters that I've made, what I actually wear and why I wear them, and to glean some insight and lessons from those. So again, I'm so grateful that you're all here. If you were new and this was your first introduction to this channel, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope that this was helpful for you, and I'm so happy that you're here. I hope that you are all just getting to enjoy the coming months of spring in your areas, that you're getting to make and do everything that you like to do, and that you're finding joy in all of it. And I'm just very grateful for you all. Without further ado, I'm gonna sign off for now. I hope you all get to knit a whole bunch of stuff, and I will catch you all in the next one. Stay classy. Bye.